Yeah, they don't get me as like jittery as like an energy drink would. Sometimes an energy, like a Monster, I'll be like, oh,
Yeah. I
These
feel
are
like
like,
I always crash really hard when I drink energy drinks.
yeah, these are like just the perfect amount. Endorsement, yeah. So
Dude, I got a Nespresso machine off of Facebook Marketplace a month or two ago. I am in love with that thing.
yeah,
Oh yeah. That's like The Office, like they get an espresso and everybody gets addicted to it and everybody's like all jittery for the first 3 quarters of the day and then they all crash and get like crabby with each other. It's
yeah.
exactly the kind of cycle I'm on these days.
Oh, that's great.
But yeah, thanks everyone for joining. We wanted to give you a good recap of a great month of UFC. As a UFC fan, just September has been phenomenal. Um,
It really has.
yeah, so I mean, let's just dive into last night, UFC 253. This was one we had both been looking forward to for a really long time here. And before we get into the main card, I just wanted to touch on Diego Sanchez. Did you see that fight?
I don't believe that I did. Let me look back here.
So Diego
No,
had
I
kind of
didn't.
got himself into the headlines this week by calling out Conor McGregor and saying that that's who he wants to end his career. And of course, everybody that sees that is like, dude, Diego Sanchez, you don't want any part of Conor. Like, you're terrible. Like, not to totally hate on Diego Sanchez. I mean, he's got Hall of Fame fights like the one against Clay Guida. The dude is a warrior. Um, Ultimate Fighter alum, been fighting in the UFC for a crazy amount of time. I think he actually moved up to like third in overall ring time all time. So time spent in the ring in the UFC.
Hmm.
He's definitely top five. I forget exactly who he moved up above. But dude, he looked sloppy. Like his gut was all jiggling all over the place. And like he looks like one of those old men with like the fat body and like skinny arms and legs coming out. Like
Oh
it's like,
no.
dude, is this guy for am I watching like a mid 90s UFC fight? Like what is going on here?
And he called out McGregor. Hilarious.
Yeah, man. And Connor was like, cool, dude, let's do it. Like Connor's silly, man. Word is that Connor's gonna fight Pacquiao next.
I saw that in a boxing match. Yeah. I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, Pacquiao's another world class boxer. McGregor's great, but man, you can't compete with a world class boxer like that. You
So you
just
think
can't.
Pac-Man will give him the biz?
I think Conor will keep it interesting, and then much like the Mayweather fight, except a little bit later, Pacquiao will just piece him up. Yeah, yeah. I think he ends
Yeah.
up knocking him out probably.
I wouldn't be surprised myself. I'm curious to see how they look next to each other because I feel like Connor's got to be gigantic compared to Pacquiao.
Yeah, yeah. Pacquiao's an itty bitty guy, but I mean he packs a punch, and the volume of punches. Whereas Floyd is more of a defensive fighter, Pacquiao he's more of an offensive fighter, and he's gonna bring the fight to you. So, um, that's why everyone wanted to see that Mayweather Pacquiao for so long. One of
Yeah.
the many reasons.
Yeah. So that kind of caught me off guard. But I mean, I think for Connor, what he's trying to do is kill time this year, still stay in the headlines in a positive way
Yeah,
as far as not being charged with sexual assault allegations.
yeah.
But
For the third time, this has come up too.
yeah, having something to do that won't necessarily, if he loses, hurt his standings in the UFC. Because I think he's camping out for the winner of Gaethje and Khabib, which I don't necessarily think he deserves to get, but that's another conversation for another day.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that was interesting. Something I didn't really see coming. I guess they have the same manager, so maybe there's some shenanigans behind the scenes with that, trying to get
Okay.
Pacquiao another payday before he hangs him up.
Yeah, Dana said he had something for Connor, so and it was gonna be fun and exciting. So we'll see.
Yeah, I did not see that coming though. But
Yeah,
yeah, Diego Sanchez, man, whew,
idiot.
he He got taken down.
Oh,
He was outstruck 72-25 in significant strikes. He got busted open at one point, and it was just honestly kind of sad to watch. Like, hang him up, dude. Like,
jeez.
retirement alert, bro. Like, uh-uh. So then the
Wow.
main card last night overall I thought was very high quality.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So
That featherweight matchup was exciting.
yeah, so you talking about the first one?
Yeah, it was really exciting.
Yeah, so I was excited for this fight because I had seen Hakeem Dawodu fight before. So we got me and Hakeem versus Zabira Tuhugov. I think is Tukagov or whatever, however you say it. He was one of the guys in the post-fight melee that was like throwing blows at Conor during the Conor Khabib fight.
I believe so. Yeah, because Habib was in his corner for this fight, which is pretty cool to kind of like
Yeah,
you could hear him screaming, screaming and yelling, you know, in the corner because obviously there's not that many people there and the audio is going to pick it up. So I don't know. I was like, Habib, he's
yeah.
back. He lives. He lives. We haven't seen him in so long.
I loved seeing him out there. A lot of people had Tuhugov is what I'm going with. They had him as the favorite to win this one, you know, being one of those combat sambo world champs and also having really good boxing, KO'd a few people in the UFC. I know he had a KO earlier this year, but just got outstruck by Hakeem. Almost doubled him up on significant strikes, as you can see here, and then only 1 of 7 on his takedown attempts. So I thought Hakeem did a great job. I was a little bit worried for him because it just seemed like he wasn't landing nobody really landed any huge shots. So it wasn't like decisive. So I was worried they might give it to Tukov because he was trying those takedown attempts and maybe pushing forward a little more. But I definitely think the judges got that one right. I was pumped to see Hakeem get his hand raised there. That kid trains out of Canada. He's definitely going to be a nightmare matchup for a lot of those guys at featherweight. So
definitely
featherweight doing big things out there.
Yeah.
So next up we had Ketlin Vieira versus Sijara Eubanks. And this was probably as big of a snooze fest as I've seen on a main card in a long time.
Yeah, I was equally disappointed. And I was really I was really expecting a lot out of this. I mean, this were, as far as the bantamweight division goes, I haven't seen 2 fighters on a main card that I really didn't know a lot about in the women's division. So I was excited to see who came out of this one and who excited me so I could start following. And I forgot both their names as soon as the match was over. So sorry. Oops.
Well, I understand what they're trying to do. I mean, you had Eubanks, I think, was ranked 13th, and Vejeda was top 10, I think the 7. They're trying to establish some contenders in these women's divisions, the 125 and 135, because the champions are so dominant. Like, there's nobody to even challenge them at this point. Like, who the hell is going to fight Valentina Shevchenko and actually put up some kind of a decent fight? I'm curious to see the Maya chick fight Shevchenko, but outside of her, there's nobody. And outside of Megan Anderson, like, what is Amanda Nunes doing, you know? Like, there's no contenders at 145. Give me a break there. But Vejeda is somebody they see is coming up and, you know, maybe getting a title shot at 135 in the future. So I can see why they would want to try to spotlight her, but man,
she's going to have to pick up the pace. I mean, she lacks all pace in there. And I mean, again, this is the first time that I've seen her fight. Maybe she's more of a counter striker and she just wants to let the game come to her. But man, snooze fest.
Snooze fest of the highest degree.
Yeah, and I mean it's easy to criticize. I mean you don't know until you're in there, but I just feel like if I was in there and I was feeling that the pace was just so slow and I might have a slight edge, I would pick it up a little bit to put the pressure on to, leave no room for the judges, to maybe favor one way or another, even though you're the more dominant fighter. So,
yeah, I mean, she definitely looked like she was winning, but it was close on significant strikes. 68 to 69 is what the official results are showing there. So Eubanks is definitely a tough fighter. She's got a lot of heart and a lot of grit, but I mean, you can see her overall record is 7-5. So
yeah.
They had a little more active on the takedowns and actually landed too. So that was the separation there. But yeah, I was pretty down. I started yawning a lot during this fight. So I was a little bit worried about being able to make it up for the main two. But thankfully the next fight here really got me back into it. So Kai Kara-France is an Aussie or a New Zealander, I believe. Trains with, I'm pretty sure he's in the same camp as Adesanya and them. Really someone with a lot of expectations coming into the UFC. And then Brandon Royval, aka Raw Dog Royval.
I love it.
Worst/best nickname in the game. These guys just came out and got after it. I mean, this is round 2, 48 seconds is when the fight was called. So less than 2 rounds here. And 71 strikes thrown for Royval, 85 total strikes to almost 40. So quite a pace there. Kai came out and drilled him with a hook, I believe.
Dropped him.
Yeah. And so he rushes in to try to end it. And Royval, as he's like stumbling around, throws a spinning back elbow and connects. And boom, Kai goes down. And this was like a minute or two into the first round. Yeah. And I'm immediately up out of my seat like, yes! Like going crazy over here.
Yeah, that was nuts. That was absolutely nuts. Man, because it's like, oh, he's done. Oh, no, he's done.
Yeah, right.
That was great. They were getting after it.
Yeah, man.
Love to see it. Love to see it.
Love to see that. And it looked like Royval just kind of recovered a little bit better than Kai did. Kai never looked like he really fully got his legs back under him. So back and forth for the rest of the first round, and then Royval ended up getting in and getting the submission, stopping it in round 2. Big props to that kid. Dana's got to love that guy. I think he stepped up on short notice a couple times here now as a big-time underdog and really been able to turn the tide for himself. You could see he was shocked himself that he's in UFC and competing like at the high level he is. So curious to see where his career goes from here, but shout out to Raw Dog for getting it done.
Raw Dog coming in with the shocker. Oh, man.
All right. So the 2 fights that everybody was excited to see, co-main event, Dom Reyes versus Jan Blachowicz. Man, this fight was fun for me to watch. I don't know what it is about Dominic Reyes, but he just like rubs me the wrong way. I don't know what it is. And you would think as an ex-football guy that I would like him. He played defensive back somewhere in Florida. I can't remember the name of the university. Thought he was going to go to the league, comes over, been dominating people. A lot of people gave him the edge over the John Jones in their last fight. So he was definitely the favorite going into this one. And you can see, significant strikes. Jan doubled him up.
It was pure domination. I think that Dominic Reyes was a little bit too cocky coming into this.
Yeah.
And honestly, like once you saw his body in the ring compared to Jan, and also his body compared to the last time he fought John Jones, it just didn't look like he was prepared. I mean, he just didn't look as physically prepared as he was against John Jones. It's almost like he felt like the belt was his just because he fought John Jones so well.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I felt coming into this. And then his performance, he just got absolutely destroyed. I mean, it wasn't even close. I was just like, oh my gosh, we're watching Jan is pure domination.
Yeah.
Wild.
It looked like Dom's game plan was to try to avoid the power early on and coast through the first couple rounds and try to make it a 5-round battle.
Mm-hmm.
Because, he just didn't come out aggressively at all. Like, against John Jones, he was pissed from the opening bell and was striking with the pace that showed that. And here it looked like he was clearly just trying to avoid Jan. Like, a couple minutes of good feeling out process, then Jan started landing some leg kicks, and then, bam, he tagged him with that left body kick to the ribs. And he hit him twice on the same exact spot in the first round. Oh, my. I've never seen somebody's ribs bruise up so quickly in a fight in my life. Like, that had to have hurt.
So quickly. And in this fight and the main, I mean, it was crazy how quickly we were seeing people show their or show the damage that they were taking.
Yeah.
On the legs and in the ribs. Yeah, I mean, that was instant. And I noticed it watching the fight before the ringside announcers did, but the moment his nose was broken, they gave like a profile shot of each fighter, right? Whenever they were squaring up, and I'm like, oh man, he broke his nose. I mean, you could see like the silhouette. you could see it. It was complete. That was nasty.
Yeah.
I mean, once he broke his nose, I'm like, oh, it's over. You could tell he was just trying to keep it together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he kept going into that just full-on shell defense, and Jan eventually was like, okay, bro, if you're not going to try to throw back, like, I'm going to pick you apart. And he was doing a good job of mixing up the hooks, getting around his guard, then also coming up the middle with some straights and some uppercuts, and just, even if you block those shots, you're feeling that power. And then a couple of them snuck through, and Jan was able to really do some damage at the end of the first round. And that dude on his ribs, it looked like in a zombie movie when somebody gets bit, but they're trying to like cover it up and hide it from the rest of the group. Right. Like, that's what his ribs looked like. I've never seen some shit like that.
Yeah, that was nuts. It was nuts. He was lighting them up. And yeah, I agree. I mean, I feel like he probably underestimated Jan's power as well. And then all of a sudden,
he might have been too worried about his power and trying to let him gas out. It looked like Dom didn't want to throw too many strikes and try to overextend himself. So he was trying to play defense through those first 2 rounds. And Jan is not the guy to play games with. No.
And I mean, like, Reyes definitely landed some good shots whenever he was actually throwing some offense. But I agree. I mean, that's exactly what it looked like. In both this co-main and main, it was so obvious that the fighter that had the better game plan, or the winning game plan, right? Jan's game plan coming in here versus Dominic's, it was a one-sided affair. So it's interesting. Like, if those two were to ever get matched up again, I wonder what would happen if Dominic just decided to come out guns a-blazing.
Yeah, I think that's what he would have to do, because he looked like he got outclassed in the striking big time last night.
Totally.
And I'm excited for Jan. Something about Polish fighters just kind of have a soft spot in my heart for them. Super humble guy, first ever Polish male fighter to hold a belt in the UFC. So big congrats to Jan Blachowicz. Just seems like a great dude. I really am curious to see what happens. So looks like Glover Teixeira versus Thiago Santos has been rebooked, or it's in the works for November 5th headlining.
Okay.
So that's definitely going to be the number one contender fight at 205 there. I would love to see Jan versus Thiago, man. That would be a hell of a fight.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes. I'm just pumped to see Thiago back again.
I know,
Um,
man. I think
because yeah, I mean, like we've said before, that fight with him and John Jones, I mean, he just blew his knee out and he still made it through the fight. I mean, that's unbelievable. He was still throwing offense.
and
So
could have arguably taken 3 rounds in that 5-rounder.
yeah. Yeah. So him back with at full strength, that's exciting. It's exciting to think about.
I think it was Glover pulled out the first time because he popped for COVID,
COVID. Yeah,
and then they
COVID.
rescheduled it for October or maybe late September, and then
Mm-hmm.
Thiago had to pull out because he popped for COVID.
Yeah, I believe so.
So be curious to see if either of them show any lingering effects from that, but definitely rooting for Thiago Santos. I think he's a guy that's definitely earned a top spot in that division. So love to see that fight, but all the glory to Blachowicz here tonight, king of the 205ers, with John Jones moving up to heavyweight. And
new.
This is how we do it in Poland.
Yeah, it was great.
So moving on to the main event, I was shocked, but honestly, the fight kind of went so it didn't go exactly as I thought it would, because I thought Paulo would come out and be more aggressive. And the big concern was that he was going to gas himself out early.
Mm-hmm.
So you could tell that his game plan was to not throw too much and get sucked into an absolute brawl early in the fight.
Mm-hmm.
But that's his strength. Like, he's a brawler in his striking. He's not going to sit there and out technique somebody with the experience of Israel Adesanya.
Yeah.
So the game plan for Paulo was way off. Like, I don't know what they were thinking. Like, he came out there and he was trying to be the counter striker. He was not pushing the pace. Right. And you could tell early on that that's what was going on. Izzy started landing some leg kicks. He was working that front leg, chewed his front leg up real quick.
Yeah.
Paulo had the cupping bruises, so I thought that's what it was at first. And I was like, oh, no, it's just the cupping redness showing up all over his calves. But then you could see, like, above and below his knee, it just got completely red. And, I mean, you look here through 2 rounds, 84 significant strikes thrown to 26. And Paulo didn't even attempt a takedown, which I was pretty surprised about myself. Just absolute total domination from start to finish by Stylebender here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think for Paulo, he again, I mean, you never know unless you're in that ring or in the octagon, excuse me. And I feel like that reach advantage was just something that he couldn't get. I mean, he looked uncomfortable with that reach advantage. I mean, he's so long. You know, I mean, you're talking about a guy that's 6'4" versus a guy that's 6'1", and honestly, Paulo looks like a short 6'1".
Yeah,
and
he had an 8-inch reach advantage.
Yeah, I mean, that's huge. That's huge, and for the skill and the precision of Israel Adesanya, you know, it's just like you said. I mean, it was just pure domination. You know, it was almost really an embarrassing fight, but I was really disappointed because I thought that he would come out, push the pace, and I was excited to see if Adesanya could take one of his outbursts, you know, or his backing him into the cage and really just wailing on him. You know, working the body, mixing in with the body to the jab, to the hook. I mean, that's what he does. You know, he's a brawler. He's a big bruiser. So I was really interested to see if how Izzy responded, if he could, because Izzy's taking some big shots. You know, Whitaker, he took some big shots. And he was able just to take him, right on the chin. And I just thought that Costa was throwing some different heat, and
Yeah.
he just didn't get anything going. But yeah, I mean, he was destroying that leg, which again, it's like, what an amazing game plan from Izzy. I'm going to make sure that if this guy does go on some sort of flurry and gets me into a bad spot on the fence, that if I can get out of it, he can't come at me again with any strength, because I've just chopped his leg in half.
Mm-hmm.
And he could never plant, and he could never get his strength back. So, I mean, it's like, okay, if he's going to come out and try to make it, to round 5 and kind of just not really push the pace and stay conservative, I'm going to eat your leg up. Botched. I hate when he says that.
Yeah.
Just like Ricky Martin, botched.
I think you nailed it, though, because, I mean, definitely in Costa's fight finishing sequences, he's always backing him against the cage.
Mm-hmm.
Body, head, mixing it up, just absolutely dropping furious combos. And he tried it 2 or 3 times in the first round, but it didn't look like he had fully committed. And I think, we can credit out some of Adesanya's defense on that, because, I mean, if you look at the co-main event, Dom was just trying to shell up, and he wasn't really moving as well. But Izzy, he was using a lot of head movement and actually throwing a couple shots of his own when Paulo went on those charges. And then he did a good job of circling out of harm's way. So he backed him up into the cage once or twice, but he didn't just shell off. He gave him a little bit to think about in the punches, and was able to circle away and maintain that distance. Mm-hmm. And then, yeah, like you said, man, chop that leg up. So by the time the second round came, Paulo was nowhere near as effective with those bursts, because he just didn't have the explosiveness trying to go forward.
Right. Yeah, man. I mean, it was impressive to watch Adesanya just dominate and just kind of pick his shots and prove again why he is the undisputed champion. Now undefeated, 20-0. Very, very impressive. Mm-hmm. At the same time, I was disappointed with that fight, because you just didn't see what you had hoped to see out of Costa, especially with his last fight being Yoel Romero, and what an exciting fight that was. And those two just let each other have it. And with the, fabricated bad blood that these two have for one another, who knows? It's a 50-50 whether that's real or not. I thought
that was hella cheesy at the weigh-in when he wore his black belt and then brought the white belt and threw it at Izzy. Like, dude, get out. That's like Cejudo level cringe right there, man.
I know. That's one thing I am glad about, is now we don't have to listen to these idiots talk shit to one another, because they quite possibly are the worst trash talkers in the UFC. It's bad. Paulo, I feel bad for him, because it's mainly because it's broken English. I feel like he may be a little bit more clever. He just doesn't have the vocabulary yet. But
yeah,
with Izzy, it's like, hey man, you're very fluent. You grew up in an English speaking country. Like, come on, man. Like, get with it.
I'm curious to see where we go from here with the 185 division. I was always like, growing up as a UFC fan, when Anderson Silva came over, he was one of my favorite fighters instantly. Rich Franklin was my favorite fighter. And then after he got dominated by the Spider twice, it was like, okay, this guy is next level.
Yeah.
And I kind of got that feeling the first time I saw Adesanya, like, okay, this guy is like the new guard. Like, he's about to change up the whole division.
Yeah.
And he reminds me a lot of like Silva 2.0. I know he doesn't like that comparison, but I mean, fluid striker, can hit you in a lot of different ways, has fun out there. Like, yeah, he reminds me a lot of an Anderson Silva, but with a little bit tighter technique, maybe you could say, and a little bit less of the flashiness. Not flashiness, but like Silva would piss me off sometimes, because if the other guy wasn't going to engage, he wouldn't engage at all. Yeah. So he had a couple fights, like the Damian Maia fight was like boring AF. Whereas like Izzy will at least try to throw something to get you to move forward. A moment last night that had me rolling, man.
Oh yeah.
Paolo was pissing me off because he kept being like, come on, let's go. And
Yeah.
it's like, bro, you're not doing anything. You can say that if you're throwing and the other guy's running away. But
Yeah.
Izzy wasn't running the whole fight like they were saying he was going to. And so Paolo stood in the middle of the ring and was like doing this bull. And then he just like stood there and popped up. And you could hear Adesanya point at him and go, Romero.
Yeah. Yeah. And then Costa said, no, this Romero. He did that, which is exactly what Romero was doing.
Oh my gosh, man. What a bizarre moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was at that point though I knew like, okay, Costa's game plan is not what it needs to be, and he's this is gonna be a long night for him if he's gonna fight this way.
Yeah.
And it was.
Yeah. It certainly was. And it's just so annoying. It's like, look, man, if you're dominating the champion in there, you can stick out your tongue and, showboat. Okay. But as the challenger, the talking is over. That was done at the pre-fight press conference and at the face-off. Like, there's no talking anymore. If you're the challenger, like, you better focus because that's the champion.
Yeah.
He's the champion for a reason. So if you don't get in there and execute, you're going to get dominated just like he did. So I'm curious to see what's next for Adesanya as well. I'm also curious to see what's next for Costa, but really, what's next for Adesanya?
Yeah, so I was
so dominant.
Curious about that myself. There's a couple of decent challengers left at 185, like Jack Hermansson's coming up the rankings like a torpedo going towards the top.
Mm-hmm.
So that may be somebody in 2 fights, but he called out Jared Cannonier after the fight. Cannonier is set to fight Robert Whittaker here in the near future. So he said if Cannonier wins that fight convincingly, that's the next number 1 contender in his eyes. Hard for me to disagree with that. Cannonier has had some really impressive KO victories here in recent memory. I don't see him. So let me pull this up here. So he TKO'd Jack, TKO'd Anderson Silva with a leg kick. I remember that one was hard for me to watch because I'm such a Silva fan. TKO'd Branch, but his last 2 losses are to Dom and Jan. But that was back in 2017. And then he lost to Glover in 2017 with a win over Nick Rorik in there. I've never heard of that guy before. So, I mean, he's got, beat David Branch. Branch is a good fighter. Silva is a heck of a fighter. And Jack, Jack beat Gastelum in his last fight. That's what it was. I was trying to figure out who that was. So he's on a 3-fight win streak. And then if he beats Robert Whittaker, that's definitely saying something. I'm not so sure he will get past Robert Whittaker. But, he's definitely got KO power in his hands. But, I mean, Izzy will pick him apart. Absolutely. Like that. Yeah. I don't see that being a close fight at all.
I agree. Yeah. So that'll be interesting. It will be really interesting to see what happens.
Maybe we get something fun with Izzy going to a different weight class
that's kind of what I'm thinking. Yeah.
Yeah. I just don't know who he would fight though. I mean, is he going to, I don't see him moving up to 205 because he's a middleweight that comes in right at 185 without having to cut weight. So I mean, right. I think it would be easier for him to make 170, but he's boys with Usman, both with that Nigerian heritage. Like they're really tight. They both said they would never fight each other. Mm-hmm. So I think it would only be if Usman loses the belt at some point. So I don't know, man.
I don't see Usman really losing the belt anytime soon, unless he's got a full camp with Masvidal, and that's the only person I think that could potentially knock him off would be Masvidal right now. Well, I guess I take that back. We all saw how much of an amazing fight Colby Covington Usman
Gonna say,
was.
don't rule out Colby. He's calling for that.
He's calling for it again, and rightfully so. Completely dominated Woodley. I mean, oh my goodness, that was embarrassing. Woodley, just retire, please, dude. Please. Let us think of you on a good note. Please leave. Please leave.
Woodley's got to be done in the UFC here soon. Like maybe they give him a money fight or like an old timers fight against another guy that's a legend, like maybe a Robbie Lawler rematch or something. Although they did just announce Robbie Lawler versus Mike Perry, and I love that fight.
Whoa, Robbie Lawler versus Mike Perry win. I missed that.
I don't know that it's official yet, but it's close. It's close to being a done deal if it's if it's not already.
I've really been wanting to see Mike Perry fight again, just because he's interesting to me. Obviously, he's an absolute mess outside the octagon.
Yeah.
So that I guess that's why I'm I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued. People like that. It's like I wonder what he's about to do.
He was trash talking Chimaev during his last fight, so I was kind of hoping they would make that matchup.
That would be awesome.
And they never made the Damian Maia Chimaev fight official, and now word is that Chimaev versus Wonder Boy is in the works. What do you think about that matchup?
Well, I love that matchup. And Wonder Boy called him out on Twitter, I believe, during his last fight. And also Dana said in the press conference that the next fight that he has will be a 5-round fight. So he did confirm that.
He needs a headliner for sure.
Yeah.
Not that it'll necessarily go 5 rounds, but scheduled for at least.
Right. Yeah. So
I would love to see that, man. Let's see if this kid's legit. Let's put him against somebody like Wonder Boy that can, you're not going to outstrike Wonder Boy if you're Chimaev. You might get a lucky power punch in there, but we'll see. We'll see what his stand-up chops are. But, I'm sure he'll try to push him against the cage and take him down if he's fighting somebody as good a striker as Wonder Boy.
Yeah, I'm also interested to see that.
I know. I'm all in on that fight, man. I'm all in on that.
Yeah, we haven't really been able to see too much, Yeah, we've got some amazing fights coming up, too. In October. Korean Zombie, we get to see him fight again against Brian Ortega. It's huge.
So I am ecstatic about that fight. I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the ones we missed in September real quick before looking ahead.
Yeah.
Just shout out to a couple of these guys here. Ovin St. Preux getting back in the win column, dropping back down to light heavyweight, getting the KO over Alonzo Minifield, who's a really strong, scary-ass dude. OSP straight KO'd him. So that was good to see him get back in the right column. We had Overeem with the win over Sakai.
Yes.
So I am excited to see what they do next for Overeem. I think you and I are on the same page, hoping that it's Overeem versus Rosenstrike rematch. That's the fight to make a heavyweight. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. Especially, 100% with the last way that fight went. The way the last fight went, excuse me. We absolutely need to see that again for sure.
Yeah, got to see them run that back there. Love seeing Reem staying in, man. So I think one more loss and he hangs them up. So curious to see where things go from there. The next one was Fight Night on September 12th. That was supposed to be Teixeira and Santos. So Michelle Waterson and Angela Hill got bumped up to the main event. Man, that was a scrap.
That was an awesome fight.
Yeah.
That was great. Both of those women absolutely brought it. And that was awesome to see. It was cool. It was cool to see Angela Hill just really hang in there with someone like Waterson. Waterson's so talented. But Angela Hill, she's no pushover at all.
Yeah, she's got really great skills. And she came out and it looked like won the first 2 rounds. You can see here just a ton of, 361 to 278 total strikes thrown, 128 to 131 on the officials of landed significant strikes. It looked like Michelle started to get in her groove after she just kind of said, screw it. I've taken some damage. Let's get in here and let's brawl a little bit. Michelle was the only one pushing the takedowns, 18 attempts to 0. She landed one, held her down for a little bit of time in the third round, and that's when the momentum really swung over. And, Angela just kind of seemed coasted a little bit in the last 2 rounds. The last round of that fight was awesome.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. I thought there was a flurry at the last 10 seconds where they both just kind of were, going tornado mode, and it looked like Angela might have landed a little more. And I was worried that had won the fight for her because I'm a huge Watterson fan and I was rooting for her. But Michelle had landed a couple of head kicks that were nasty.
Yeah. She ate them.
Yeah. So I think either one of them could have got their hand raised there. And I think, Angela, they've both been in a lot of close fights. I thought Angela won her last fight against Claudia Gadelha. So another really thin, razor thin loss for her. But she was the first ever African-American woman to headline a UFC card. So big props to Angela Hill. Her and Michelle clearly both have a lot of fight left in them. So the next week we had
an amazing card.
UFC Fight Night, Woodley versus Covington. Started off with Kevin Holland and Darren Stewart. Kevin Holland is a beast and a really fun fighter to see at middleweight, up and coming.
Yes, absolutely. That fight was extremely close. That was a really entertaining fight to watch.
Yeah, he's got that like kung fu style. It's like something you see in movies that you don't really see in real fights that often. Yeah, I was worried that Stewart was going to edge him out with the takedowns because Holland came out really fast in that fight. It looked like Stewart didn't want to gas himself. But I was excited to see Holland end up getting the decision there. And he called out Chimaev too, which was funny.
Yeah.
Mackenzie Dern.
I was going to say he also told Dana he didn't feel like he won the fight, which was
that was odd. That was odd.
Yeah, he said he wanted to run it back. So
you could hear them talking trash in the ring. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Mackenzie Dern is an absolute beast.
Hey-o.
Not that Marcos is anything to be afraid of. She does have some decent wins, actually. I shouldn't say that, but Dern, she was wanting to show her new striking. She's been practicing her boxing a lot, and you can see she threw more strikes than she usually does, but she ended up slipping on a kick, and Marcos decided to engage on the ground against the jiu-jitsu black belt, which I thought was a stupid move.
Wrong move.
And Dern ended up ripping her arm off full-on Ronda Rousey mode. Dern, man, she is something else.
Yeah, that actually got me up out of my seat. I was like, "Oh, just tap." Oh, I was sitting there watching her do it, and I'm just like, "Oh my god, just she's gonna break it. She's gonna break it. Don't let her break it."
Yeah,
it was wild. And Mackenzie Dern, after the fight, even said she was like, her elbow is really, really flexible. You think it looked like you broke it like 6 or 7 times. Like it was probably just broken. That's why it was so flexible. I mean, that was crazy. It was cringy. I was like, oh.
Yeah, that was tough to watch at points, but Dern is pretty fun to watch. Johnny Walker versus Ryan Spann. This was a fight that really irritated me.
You just don't like Johnny Walker, though.
He's a punk, dude. I can't stand him.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't really have an opinion on him.
What pissed me off about this fight is that earlier in the night, and it was the same ref too. I think it was Dan Murgliata. I forget which fight it was, but a guy was mounted and he threw one punch down on the guy and it hit him like here. And he broke him up and was like, "Nah, dude, don't hit him in the back of the head." So he split him up, called a timeout, and the dude lost position. And it clearly looked like a shot to the side of the head to me.
Yeah.
So then you get Spann versus Walker. Both guys rocked each other. I thought Walker was going down.
For sure.
And then, he got the full wobbly legs, was able to recover. Then they both, like Rocky Apollo Creed mode, hit each other at the same time.
Yeah, that was awesome.
That was awesome. Yeah. Oh, my gosh. So then Spann ends up shooting, and he's looking for the double leg, and he's got Walker against the cage. Walker starts elbowing and throwing hammer fists. And he landed like 8, 9, 10 hammer fists cleanly square in the back of Span's head.
It was the back of the head for sure.
The ultimate elbow. So then he switched to 2 elbows, and the elbow that did it was definitely a legal blow. So I'm not complaining about the KO shot. But the shots leading up to the elbow that ended up ending the fight were clear illegal shots. And I think Span's coaches actually have filed an appeal for that fight because, dude, it was BS. Like, he just sat there and teed off on, like, right where your brainstem is. Just bop, bop, bop. Like, and the same ref that had made that call the other way aired, like, so obviously it was blatant. Like, I think even the announcer said something at the time, like, that pissed me off so bad, dude. I was fired up after that fight.
Yeah. I agree. It was frustrating to watch. At the same time, like, it was an exciting fight leading up to that. So I was like,
definitely a lot of action. So curious to see where Walker goes from here. He comes off of a 2 or 3 fight skid he was on, so gets back in the win column there. Another fight, another training camp. And he's trained with Faraz and the boys up in Canada. Now he's over with Conor's team in Ireland.
John Kavanagh, yep.
This dude's all over the place. He didn't know what he's doing. So next you had a middleweight match. Gerald Meerschaert versus Hamzat Chimaev is an absolute monster. Yeah, we already talked about him a little bit. His first 2 fights, he was dominant with his wrestling and the ground and pound. And this one he came out and with just a clean, straight right to the jaw, KO'd Meerschaert, proving that he's got that power in the stand-up game as well. So looks like a versatile fighter that's in here for the long haul. Is he Khabib 2.0? I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see.
It's been a fun ride so far. I know that much.
So far, every opponent, he smashed him. He smashed you. Yeah.
So
we'll see.
We will see. I'm definitely watching his career with a lot of interest. Cerrone versus Nico Price. This is a fight that I was excited to see. You know, I knew Nico wasn't going to try to go for the takedown, so an absolute stand-up brawl here. Look at these stats here, man. So the women's fight that we were talking about a few minutes ago with all those strikes thrown and landed, that was a 5-rounder. This one, Cerrone threw 230 and Nico threw 312 in 3 rounds. He landed 150 significant strikes in 3 rounds. That's insane.
Yeah, high volume for sure. This was a very, very exciting fight. And you called it too. You called it being a draw right before it happened. And I mean, I agreed. I was, yeah.
I was mad. Okay, so Nico had got a warning, and you could tell he fights with his hands up and his fingers out like this, and he was trying to grab Cerrone's arms when he was punching. And on the one, so he had already gotten a warning for an eye poke in the first round, and then he's going like this, and Cerrone like comes in leading with his head, and Cerrone initiated the contact, but he still did take a finger straight to the eyeball. So I thought it was a little bit, maybe give the guy a really like a final warning at that point in the fight, especially since Donald was the one that initiated the contact. But he kept doing it throughout the whole fight. So I think if they hadn't taken the point away in round 1, they would have done it later in one of the later rounds.
Yeah.
But Nico, I thought clearly won 2 of the 3 rounds. And then, you get that -1 point to make it a majority draw. One of the judges did score it 2-1 for Cerrone. I don't know about that, bro. But yeah, really exciting fight. Sucks that it was kind of tarnished by the eye pokes. You think Cerrone's done now or what?
I think he's going to definitely campaign for one more. But yeah, I kind of think he's done. I don't think that he will be a fighter that will go to Bellator, but if he really thinks he's got a lot left in the tank, he may. It'll be so hard for me to see him kind of take a step back and go to Bellator, especially if he starts losing. Like, if he were to take like a 3-fight deal in Bellator and go out on top for all 3, then that's a great way for him to go out and end his career. But I don't know. I think it is probably time for him to hang it up. I worry about him, man. I mean, he's been in so many fights and he's been knocked out a lot.
And he's had some brutal KOs, yeah.
Yeah, and he just lives a wild life.
Would you watch him on Joe Rogan?
Yes.
So he tells us.
I feel like he's been on there multiple times, but yes, the most recent one I've seen.
He told a story about going scuba diving.
Yes, I remember that one.
My gosh, that's so this is a total aside here. He's going scuba diving with his team, and he likes to go into underwater caves. And he's with a guy that's pretty amateurish. And the big thing about going into those caves is you have like a home line that's like your way out, essentially. Because once you're in those caves underwater, it's hard to even tell which way is up. A lot less, okay, let me go left and right, then up a door and back out. And you know what I mean? So they keep a rope so they can just follow it back. Well, one of the guys that was with him starts freaking out underneath the water and like tosses all this dirt up and everything and lets go of the line. So Donald goes and saves the guy and brings him back. The guy is still like flailing and everything. And throughout it all, Donald ends up losing the line. And he tells this story about how he didn't know which way was up. And he's like, oh shit, like how much oxygen do I have left? And like having this full on panic attack, like going in his mind, thinking that he's about to suffocate underwater and like drown to death in this expedition. Oh my gosh, man, that story is insane, dude.
It was intense. Yeah. And he was like, obviously he even said he was, like you said, full on panic attack at the time. So now hearing him talk about it, and he was just like, I was like, well, yeah, oxygen's running low. Tank's almost out. I guess this is how Cowboy goes. I'm like, man, it's wild. Yeah, that story was intense. Gotta love Cowboy.
Gotta love Cowboy, man.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he's on I was encouraged to hear his post-fight speeches because it sounds like he understands that it's probably time for him to hang him up. He just had another son born, so that's his second kid. And Dana is definitely on the page of wanting to see him hang him up. Dana is going to have that conversation with him, he said. So hopefully he calls it a career and doesn't try to come back for one more. I'm with you. I don't see him going to Bellator. If anything, I could maybe see him going to like bare knuckle fighting or something, but I do not want to see that at all. Like,
no,
had a long career predominantly in the UFC, Hall of Famer, hands down, like ended in a draw. Hang him up, dude. Like, please don't come back.
Yeah. And I feel like there's so many things that he could do. I mean, he's such a personality. He's got a lot of options. It's not like he's just going to get bored, I mean, plus he's already got his ranch. He's got the BMF ranch. So, yeah. Hang it up, Donald. We love you.
Yeah. and stay active as a commentator, though. We love your personality.
Yeah, that would be hilarious.
So then, headliner of that card, we had Covington versus Woodley, a fight that went pretty much the way I would have expected it to. I mean, any surprises there for you?
The only surprise for me is that yet again, Woodley did not come out and let his hands fly after he promised time and time again to his fans that he would, especially against Colby Covington, who he hates. Yeah. And he just got outclassed by Covington. I mean, Covington completely dominated this. And not only did he dominate it, he was cruising while he was dominating. Like, I don't think that Colby overexerted himself one time in that fight, like looking back. So, it'll be interesting to see what happens with Colby Covington next. I think it's time for Tyron to hang that up. as
Yeah.
well.
And
And
I think Tyron's a guy that will go over to Bellator at the end of the day. But
yeah, I could definitely see him going to Bellator, not bare knuckle, but Bellator for sure. Maybe having 3 more fights.
yeah, his UFC days of competing with the top in the world are
Yeah,
over with. I mean, that's 3.
yeah,
He has fought the 3 best guys in that division back to back to back, but I mean, there was not a glimmer of hope in any one of those fights.
no,
Um, and Tyron's personality has always been pretty cringy for me, so
hmm
I'm not mad about it.
yeah, he's another one. He's the king of corny. It's
Yeah,
just like what.
I really wanted to root for him in this fight,
Uh-huh.
but I just couldn't bring myself to. Like he
Yeah,
just, yeah,
yeah.
is
And once again, no matter what you think of Colby Covington, once he gets in there and starts fighting, he's a hell of a fighter.
he's a hell of a fighter. He's
Yeah.
really smart about throwing strikes at like 70 to 80%, so that he's constantly moving and constantly attacking different angles and throwing strikes, but he's never like one of these guys that's going for the knockout in one blow. It punches and bunches, and he controls his striking extremely well.
Yeah.
I'm really like, obviously he called out Usman and Masvidal. Looks like both of them might have fights already kind of in the works. Obviously Usman's fighting Durinho, which Usman does not need to get distracted by Colby, because I think Burns matches up with him better than anybody in that division does, just with his strengths versus, I mean, they're really similar styles. So I'm really curious to see Gilbert Burns versus Kamaru Usman. I think that'll be closer than a lot of people give it credit for, especially if Kamaru's looking past Gilbert onto somebody like Colby or something like that. But then word is we're going to get Masvidal versus Nate Diaz part 2. So that kind of leaves Colby without a dance partner. And honestly, I mean, I love Masvidal Diaz. I definitely think that's a fight that needs to happen, but I would much rather see Masvidal Colby at this point, especially with the bad blood there.
Totally agree. Totally agree on
if
that.
If it doesn't happen, Colby versus Leon Edwards. Give me that fight.
Yeah, I would love to see it, but does Leon Edwards really deserve it?
He's on an 8-fight win streak.
No.
He deserves something because, well, it was rumored that he might be coming back for Wonder Boy. But if Wonder Boy's going to fight Hamzat, I mean, is he going to keep sitting out? Like, he's got to fight somebody eventually, right?
Yeah.
So the only guy really in the top 5 that wouldn't be booked would be Colby.
Yeah.
I think that's a great matchup.
I just keep all those lame trash talkers far away.
I do think it's a shame that we haven't seen Masvidal versus Edwards. Like, 3-piece in a soda, man. That fight sells itself.
He made Leon Edwards famous. Really? I mean, that's kind of how I feel if Covington were to fight Leon Edwards. It's like, man, Covington is probably going to destroy him, and he's just going to make him famous temporarily. So,
yeah, I don't see Colby running through Leon Edwards. Like, I've been pretty impressed watching Leon's career with his skills. I'm just super disappointed that he hasn't been able to get a fight this year. Like, but he sucks at trying to. Yeah, he sucks at doing it. Like,
that's the thing. Yeah, you got to have the whole package if you want, if you want the ticket to the big show.
That's 100% true, man. So we'll see how things shake out there, but the 170-pound division is definitely very interesting these days. Yes. So real quick before we wrap up, we'll kind of touch on what's coming up in October. On the 3rd, we've got a fight night with Holm versus Aldana. I cannot believe that that's a main event. They must be struggling for main event fights these days.
They are producing a lot of fights though, but yeah, I would rather see them take a week off than produce a card like this.
Yeah,
but they've got to have their reasons, obviously.
Yeah. Well, the show must go on, I guess.
True.
That if Holly Holm loses, it's time for her to hang him up.
She has to
But
hang it up.
I
Yeah.
don't think she will lose that fight, though. I've seen Irene fight. She's not terrible. She's got good length on her strikes, but I think her strengths are the same as Holly's, and I think Holly is better at them. So I could definitely see her winning via KO in that fight. On that card, you do have Germaine Durandamy versus Juliana Pena, women's bantamweight fight there. I love that matchup. Pena is a really good boxer and brawler, and Durandamy, the Iron Lady, definitely one of my favorites in the heavier women's weight classes. I thought she gave Amanda the best fight of anybody that has fought Amanda Nunes. So much so that Amanda took the fight to the ground the entire time. She did not want any part of standing with Germaine in that fight at all.
Right.
It looked like she was really getting outstruck. So she just decided to take her down and hold her down for 5 rounds. So I'd love to see the Iron Lady make another run. And getting back to the top in the long career that she's had. She's a former kickboxing world champion. Like, she's a beast. So curious to see how that fight plays out with 2 strikers there. But yeah, that card top to bottom is not exactly the deepest.
No. Yeah, then on the 10th, it's a short one as well.
Yeah, the 10th, we've only got 3 fights inked so far, but those top 2 ones are pretty fun for me. I love Ben Rothwell versus Marcin Tybura. I like Tybura a lot. I think he's an Aussie, but a crazy striker, real good power in his hands. Both guys, I think, are coming off a loss. Rothwell is an awkward striker, huge heavyweight, so that'll be a fun matchup. And then Moraes versus Corey Sandhagen. I am pulling for Sandhagen big time in that one because I do not like Moraes at all. What do you think about that one?
Yeah, I'm kind of a toss-up. On that. I'd probably flip a coin on that one, personally.
So next week is when things really start to heat up. UFC Fight Night on the 17th. We've got Chan Sung Jung, a.k.a. the Korean Zombie, versus Brian T-City Ortega. This is a fight that I am really looking forward to.
Yeah, likewise. When was the last time we saw Korean Zombie? It's been a while, right?
I think it's when he KO'd Frankie Edgar.
Yeah.
I believe so.
Very, very excited for this one. October's looking great. It really is. Yeah, it's another strong card.
Yeah, Zombie's been pretty busy since not super busy. 2017, he KOs Dennis Bermudez. 2018, he only had 1 fight. He lost to Yair, which was maybe the greatest fight of all time in UFC history. He was winning that fight and then got walk-off elbow knocked out in the last second of the fight. That was, oh my gosh, that was incredible. Next year, he knocks out Moicano in the first round and then brutally knocks out Frankie Edgar in the first ever event that they had in South Korea. And he hasn't fought so far this year. T-City hasn't fought since he got beat by Max Holloway, and that was a long time ago. That was 2018. Yeah. And he was undefeated going into that one. Kind of a tough fight to watch, honestly, seeing him getting worked by Max like that. Like, I thought they could have ended that fight a round earlier. Took a ton of damage. So glad he took it, over a year off there, almost 2 years by the time they fight. But I'm definitely pulling for Zombie in that one, dude. I want to see Zombie get a title fight so bad. I love that dude.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun to watch. Rounding out October, oh my goodness.
Mm-hmm.
The return of the light heavyweight king, 28-0, undefeated, Khabib.
So before I talk about that one, let's just look at the main card there. I pray to God, it's 6 fights on this card, opens up with a fight I've been talking about for months now. Hopefully it finally comes through here. This is like Tony versus Khabib 2.0. Magomed Ankalaev and Jan Kutelaba. Man, I hope that fight actually comes through. Cynthia Calvillo is coming back against Lauren Murphy. Lauren Murphy is a dog, bro. She will go out there and battle. So that'll be a really fun fight. I think Calvillo is ranked 2nd in the flyweight division. So definitely some consequences in the top 10 there. We've got the return of Rafael Dos Anjos fighting Islam Makhachev. That's a great matchup there.
I was going to say that really is a great matchup. Look at that stash that Rafael's rocking.
Oh, yeah, I got to pull that up there. Dos Anjos
really strong.
Coming back down, he'd gone up to 170 for a while and had some early success, but lost his last couple of fights there. I mean, look at that mustache, bro. That's powerful right there.
Class.
I used to not like Dos Anjos very much, but just as his career has gone on, like, the guy is an absolute warrior. He only fights the best fighters, very well-rounded. I think it was the fight against Kevin Lee is when I really became a fan of Rafael. So, yeah, I'm pumped about this fight right here, Islam versus Rafael. Got Volkov versus Walt Harris. Solid fight right there.
Yeah, another good one.
I got Volkov. I thought he showed a lot of grit in his last fight when he fought Curtis Blades and took him. Curtis was somebody that you thought was going to dominate that fight, and he came out very strong. But as the fight went on, Volkov kept landing strikes and wearing Curtis down, which was a surprise. And he almost finished him in the 5th, but he dominated the 4th and the 5th rounds, but he had just dug too much of a hole at that point. So hopefully see him getting back in the win column. Walt Harris, another gritty veteran. The crazy story of, I think it was his daughter getting kidnapped. Definitely look into that. I don't want to butcher the details going over it now, but Walt Harris is a great guy that he's easy to root for. Co-main event there, Whitaker versus Cannonier. Kind of touched on that a second ago since Adesanya had called out Cannonier. But don't look past Bobby Knuckles in that one. He seems like he's pissed off after losing to Izzy, and he's a dangerous fighter, man.
Yeah, I love watching Whitaker fight, man. Yeah. It's going to be a really fun one for sure.
So if he wins, does he get a rematch against Izzy? I think it might take one more win after that, right?
I think one more win and it's undeniable. But if he wins this one, why not give him another shot?
If he comes out and starches him, let's say.
Right. Yeah, if he comes out and dominates, maybe gets TKO. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, so really excited about that fight. You can guarantee they're going to be standing and banging, which probably won't be happening as much in the main event there. The return. What do you think about that fight? Khabib versus Justin Gaethje.
Kind of how I feel about every new challenger for Khabib, who we all think could finally slay the dragon. It's an exciting matchup stylistically, but at the end of the day, I don't think there's any way that Khabib is going to lose. Not this one, at least. I think he'd be more in jeopardy of taking an L versus Tony Ferguson, the fight that will probably never happen. I just feel like, Tony's so much bigger than Khabib, and it's a more difficult matchup stylistically for Khabib, whereas all of Khabib's opponents, he is the stylistic matchup nightmare, right? But who knows? We'll see. Justin Gaethje, he does have an amazing background for wrestling.
I kind of looked into his wrestling background. It's really not that great.
Really?
he was a collegiate wrestler, but he was pretty mediocre. Like he's not like a former national champion, I don't believe.
Well, yeah, I mean, not like, the some of the guys that come in there, but like whenever I watch this little short documentary, I mean, that's all they raved about was
Yeah, I
his
mean
ground game.
he came from wrestling for sure,
Right,
but
right.
he's never tried to wrestle really in the UFC. He's more of a defensive wrestler. So I mean
Yeah, yeah.
that's good that he's got good wrestling defense because obviously that's what Habib's going to try to do.
Hmm.
I think if he wins, it's in a scramble. Maybe he stuffs a takedown and lands like a power right hook and wobbles Khabib, and
Hmm.
then ends up rushing him and punches and bunches, takes him down. That's kind of the
Yeah,
only way I see him getting the W in this fight. I think if it goes the distance, I think he'll be big time.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but just curious to see if he can stay off his back in that fight. Sounds like he's got the right game plan, wanting to take out Khabib's legs, throw some heavy leg kicks. His theory is
Hmm.
if he lands 5 leg kicks, he wins the fight.
Huh. That's interesting.
Yeah. But I
That's
mean, he's been
interesting.
training with Usman, who is, a weight class above and another smothering wrestler.
Hmm.
Definitely not the style you're going to see from Habib with that sambo awkward background, but just the way. I mean, I know MMA math doesn't work, but seeing the way Dustin handled Gaethje, I don't see it happening.
Yeah. Me neither. Me neither.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But nonetheless, it'll be exciting to see Habib back in the octagon again, and it'll be interesting to see what Gaethje can bring to the table, and hopefully he makes it exciting for at least a couple rounds. But
Yeah.
I think ultimately, it's going to be another "I will smash you" type of matchup. I think he's going to smash him. Yeah.
Yeah, be curious to see where Khabib's head's at first fight since the loss of his father,
Hmm.
who is his training head trainer, maybe not head trainer, but he's been a coach of his whole life.
Yeah.
Um, so does he lose a little bit? Does he come out even more gassed up because of that?
Hmm.
Time will tell here, but yeah, I always root for Khabib, so I got Khabib in that one. Um, if he does win, what's left for him? I mean, aside from a GSP match.
I mean, Dana always says it. The fight to make is always going to be the rematch with Conor. Um, and I feel like with his head right on straight, a healthy Conor with a full camp, with a humongous emphasis on ground game and respecting his stand up because he didn't respect his stand up the last time that's why he got rocked. I think that to me is the closest that we're ever going to get because we're never going to get Tony Ferguson. So if we can't get Tony Ferguson versus Habib and that matchup is gone, I think that's the only one that is interesting again, which I would still give the edge once again to Habib, for the outcome, unless Conor can keep it on the feet for the majority of the time. And I mean, no one's been able to keep Habib on his feet. So,
And that's what I definitely agree that Ferguson is the worst matchup for Habib with his lankiness and
mhm.
being such a skilled submission artist off his back. I think you're going to need somebody that's really good off their back and creative with those long limbs to pull off a
Yeah.
submission. Because Habib will put himself in position for the guillotine. Like Dustin almost had it, but I just don't think his body type was conducive to being able to do that. But yeah, I agree. I don't think we'll ever get Tony and Habib. So
Yeah.
super disappointed there. But I mean, even more, that's why I'm surprised about this whole Conor versus Manny Pacquiao thing, because why are you going to take him out of MMA practice to go box again if
Mhm.
you're going to throw him for Habib? I mean, let's say Conor versus Pacquiao happens in January. What are you going to do? The July card with Habib versus Conor? I
Yeah.
mean, is that enough? Like, I feel like Conor needs to be drilling takedown defense for a year straight to be prepared for that fight.
With how dominant Habib is, yeah. I mean, and we saw how the last one went. I thought Conor did a pretty good job early on, but a lot of people have a pretty good shot at Khabib early on. And then in those later rounds, he just wears you down and smash you. So
he's relentless. Yeah.
He's relentless. He doesn't quit. And, that's why he's so dominant and so impressive to watch. I kind of see him going to a nice round 30-0 and just calling it quits.
Yeah, I think he's only got one fight if he gets Pat Gaethje. Maybe they do Michael Chandler. That might be something to consider since, he's kind of wiped out most of the other contenders at 155. Chandler coming over as the former Bellator champion. That could be interesting. I think he gets smashed, but I think if you're going to try to maximize Chandler, that's the way to do it rather than him fighting somebody like Dustin and getting KO'd, and then you lose the luster of it immediately.
Yeah.
Also very disappointed they haven't been able to make Dustin versus Tony. That's a fight that I would love to see.
It needs to happen. It needs to happen, yeah, especially for that division. And again, I just think that if he, especially if he runs through Gaethje and say he's only got one more fight left, it's not going to be GSP. I just don't.
Why do you say that?
I just don't see GSP coming out of retirement to do it. I really don't. He's in phenomenal shape. What's in it for him aside from money?
That's the thing. That's the thing that's pulling him back in is he would be the first ever 3-division champ in history. So it's a huge legacy fight for him.
I thought that I had heard him say though that he wouldn't want to win the title. Like he wouldn't want to become champion.
So his thing is that he came up and took the 185 belt and then vacated it within a month. And Dana was pissed about that. And that's why they didn't make Khabib versus GSP a year or two ago, because Dana's like, nah, dude, F that. If you're just going to come in and beat my champion and then be gone again, that like delegitimizes the championship. But since Khabib only has, that will be his last fight too. It's kind of like this Stipe versus DC thing. Like,
yeah,
you can take that, you can afford that because regardless, if Khabib wins, he's going to vacate the belt anyway. So I think GSP was saying that he wasn't going to be allowed to have that fight because of that. But Dana has come out and said he's definitely interested in that fight. I think, he's done a test weight cut to 155. We saw those pictures. I think that was last year he did that. I think the only way GSP comes back is for that Khabib fight, or if somehow Conor ends up with the 155-pound belt coming back, because he only wants a legacy fight, and that would make him the only ever 3-division champ in history, which, he definitely has talked about having a desire for that. But he also puts a lot of stuff out there about like, oh, I'm old and I'm done. And he plays a lot of mind games too.
Yeah. I was not impressed with your fight.
But I would much rather see GSP. That than Conor versus Khabib again. Like GSP Khabib, dude, that would be huge.
It would also be a massive money fight, for sure. That would be a massive, massive money fight. Yeah. I guess for the newer fans of the sport, Conor Khabib would be, the mega fight, mega rematch. But certainly, for the people who have been around for a while, it would be interesting. Either way, either one of those fights are breaking records, as far as sales go.
Those would be huge.
Yeah, those would be huge. So, and I think that it has to be one of those two for his last fight, and then he's done.
Yeah. I definitely think he's only got 2 fights left. I would love to see a rematch of Conor versus Dustin Poirier. I think I might have mentioned that last time, but
yeah.
Conor wants a guy that's got some good luster, but also he knows isn't going to wrestle him other than Khabib because he wants the title. But Conor, that's why he took the Cowboy fight, because he knew Cowboy wasn't going to try to take him down. He was going to stand there, and he knew he had the advantage.
Yeah.
I think Dustin has improved so much from their first fight. I definitely still give the edge to Conor, But man, I think that would be a fight for the fans for the ages right there.
It would be awesome. It would be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just hope Conor comes back. So these guys can take some lessons on how to talk trash. Jeez. Oh my gosh, man. I mean, there may not be another creative person, like Conor. I mean, Conor's a once in a lifetime type.
He's an Ollie level trash talker, man.
Yeah, he's an Ollie level trash. Absolutely. The charisma, the energy, the delivery, he's very quick. He's very witty. So,
he's smart. Yeah.
Yeah. Gosh, I hope he comes back.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think we'll see him next summer, back in the octagon, just against who. There's a lot of pieces to fall before that. Yeah, curious to see if he fights Pacquiao. Honestly, I would be pretty disappointed if that does end up happening, but it is what it is. But yeah, so September, great month to be a UFC fan. October, especially the end of the month, going to be awesome.
Yes.
Definitely most looking forward to that Khabib fight, and then T-City versus Zombie. Oh, I can't wait for that. Yeah, anything else on your mind?
No, that's pretty much it. It's pretty much it for me. Yeah. It's a great time to be a UFC fan.
Absolutely. And a great time to be a basketball fan as well.
Yes.
I got 2 cats in the finals already with AD and Rondo. Let's see if we can get some more. Go Heat tonight. But yeah, so we'll have another UFC wrap up for you at the end of October. I hope you guys have enjoyed this, and we'll see you next time.
Dana White, hire me.
Adios. Bom dia.